Today, we're going to learn how to do synthetic division. Synthetic division is a super simple way that we could divide polynomials. So, let's set up the equation. So, we start the equation by setting up this L-shaped bracket looking thing. We need to put numbers in this slot and right here before we could solve the equation. So, for the numbers in this row right here, we need to line up the coefficients of the first function, so all of these numbers. So let's write this here. We need to write the coefficient for the one that has x cubed, x squared, x, and the normal number. The coefficient for the x cubed is 1, so we're going to put 1 right here. The coefficient for the x squared is 7, so we put 7 right here. The coefficient for the 10x is 10, so we put 10 right here. And the last number, which is no x, just says -6, so we put -6 right here. Now the second part is that we need to find the number that goes in the corner, so right here. So we can find that number by using this part of the equation. So there's two steps to find what number we should put in that corner. The first one is to make that little part of the equation equal to 0 and to solve for x. So we make x plus 3 equal to 0. All we need to do now is just solve for x. So to get x, we just move the 3 over here. It'll be -3 equals x. So that's how we know that we put a -3 into this corner. Now we set up the equation, so now we can solve. The first step is to drag down the first number, always. You always drag this number down. The next step is to multiply. So you multiply the number in the corner by the number on the bottom row. So -3 times 1 is -3. Then you add. So 7 plus -3 is 4. So you repeat this process of dragging down the number, multiplying it by the number in the corner, then you put it to the next slot. So let's repeat that process. -3 times 4 is -12. 10 plus -12 is 2. And 2 times -3 is 6. So 6 plus -6 is 0. If this number in the corner right here is a 0, the last number on the bottom row, that means that this number is a factor. X plus 3 is a factor of x cubed plus 7x squared plus 10x minus 6. So that's a good thing. It means it's divisible. It's a factor. So what do we do with all these numbers on this row? So since we know that x cubed divided by x is x squared, the first number is going to be a coefficient for x squared. So 1 is going to be the coefficient for x squared. Then we go off that. So if this is x squared, the second number is going to be the coefficient for x. So it'll be 4x. And the last number is going to be the coefficient of no x, nothing. So it'll just be -2. And the 0 we'll need to write down. So the final answer for this equation is x squared plus 4x minus 2. So let's work on another example. First part is to set up the equation. So to set up the equation, we make this L-shaped thing, and we list the coefficients of the first function. So this term right here. So we want the x, so since this is an x squared right here, we put an x squared, we put an x, and we just want the number with no x. So the coefficient of the x squared term is 6. So we put a 6 under the x squared term. The second one is a 7x, which is under the x. So the coefficient of 7x is just 7. So we put a 7 under the x column. The final one is just a number with no x, so that's just -20. We put that there. So once we got this part done, we need to put the number in the corner. We need to find out what that is. So we know the two steps to do that is to make the second part of the equation, this part, equal to 0 and find the x value. 2x plus 5 equal to 0. And we find the x by doing, we move the 5 to the other side, and we divide by 2 to find the x. 2 divided by both sides, x equals negative 2.5. So the corner number that we put here is negative 2.5. Now we can start the equation. So we always have to drag down this first number. This is a must. So now we have the first number, we can multiply it by the corner number. We repeat the process of multiplying, drag down, adding, all that. So negative 2.5 times 6, that is negative 15. So once we get here, we add them together. 7 plus negative 15, that is 8. Negative 8. Negative 8 times 2.5 is, negative 2.5 is 20. And 20 plus negative 20 is just 0. Since this number is a 0, we know that 2x plus 5 is a factor of this function right here. Now we could get the answer of these numbers. So since x squared right here divided by x is x, that means that the first number is going to start with an x. So 6 is the coefficient, and 6 is the coefficient of x, so we put 6x, and we would just put negative 8. So this is the problem, or the answer for this problem. 6x minus 8. Here's our last and probably our hardest example. So if you can solve this, you're probably good on synthetic division. So first thing is that we have to set up the equation. We know that we have to list the coefficients. So the coefficient of 3x cubed is 3, so we put a 3 here under the x cubed column. For the x squared column, it's negative 2. And we have no x here. In this function, there's no x. It skips over x squared to just the normal number without x. So since there's no x, all we have to put is 0 here. And for the number is just negative 150. So even though there's 3 terms in this function, we put 4 numbers because it skips over the x. Now we need to find a number that we put in the corner right here. So there's 2 steps. We know we have to make it equal to 0 and find the value of x. X minus 4 equals 0. And to find the x, we move the 4 to the other side and make it x equals 4. So we know the number we put here is 4. Now we can solve the equation. So we always must have to drag the first number down. Now we can start. So 4 times 3, that's 12. Negative 2 plus 12 is 10. 4 times 10 is 40. 40 plus 0 is 40 again. And 40 times 4 is 160. And 160 plus negative 150 is 10. This number is not a 0. If it was a 0, that means that x minus 4 is a factor. So since this is not a 0 and it's a 10, that means that x minus 4 is not a factor of this function right here. So that's going to change our answer a bit. So now that we know we have these numbers, all we have to do is write down the proper number on it. So for 3, it would be 3x squared. It's x squared because x cubed divided by x is x squared. So then it would be 10x, since this is a 10. Then it would just be 40. But what do we do with this 10 here? So if we get if the remainder is not a 0 and it's anything but a 0, we rewrite it like this. We put the 10 on the fraction bracket. We put it over a fraction, and on the denominator is the thing that we're dividing by. So that's just x minus 4, since we're dividing by that. So this is going to be the final answer. The only thing different from the other equations is that we put this thing here. Since all the other equations, the remainder was 0, so we didn't have to put that. But since the remainder is 10, we have to put it like this. We put the number, then we put the thing that we're dividing by, which is x minus 4. So that is the last example.